Have you ever wondered about the differences between male and female brains? It's an intriguing question, isn't it? We've all heard various claims, some outlandish, some seemingly grounded in science. From the assertion that men are better at reading maps to the stereotype that women are more emotional, these common misconceptions and myths have long been part of our societal narrative. But what does the world of neuroscience have to say about it? Buckle up, because we're about to delve into the fascinating world of neuroscience to understand these differences. First, let's talk about brain size. Now, it's a common misconception that a bigger brain means more intelligence, but that's not entirely true. In fact, men's brains are generally 9% larger than women's. That's right, 9%. But here's the kicker. Both genders have the same number of neurons. Neurons are the core components of the brain and the nervous system, the tiny messengers that transmit information around our bodies. So even though a man's brain might be physically larger, it doesn't necessarily mean he's got more brain power. It's a bit like comparing a sports car to a truck. The truck might be bigger, but it doesn't mean it's faster or better. Both vehicles have their unique strengths and capabilities, just like our brains. So size isn't everything when it comes to brain power. Next, let's discuss grey matter. This term refers to the parts of the brain involved in processing information, controlling muscle movement and sensory perception. It's named grey matter due to its greyish appearance, but don't let the colour fool you. This grey substance is packed with neuron bodies that are critical to your brain's function. Now, it's fascinating to note that men have up to 6.5 times the amount of grey matter as women. Picture a busy city bustling with activity. That's the male brain, with its higher quantity of grey matter, processing information at a rapid pace. Meanwhile, the female brain, though having less grey matter, utilizes its resources just as efficiently, like a well-organized small town. However, it's essential to remember that having more grey matter doesn't necessarily equate to being smarter or better. It's all about how our brains use this matter to process information. Grey matter is crucial for information processing, but it's not the only factor in brain function. Now, let's explore the role of genes in brain function. Have you ever wondered why certain behaviours seem to be more common in one gender than the other? For instance, why is monogamy more prevalent in some individuals? The answer to this might lie in our genes. One example of this is the vasopressin receptor gene in our brain. This gene is associated with monogamous behaviour. The fascinating part is that the length of this gene varies between men and women. In simpler terms, imagine a stretchy rubber band. The longer the rubber band, the stronger its pull towards monogamy. So some individuals may have a longer rubber band or vasopressin receptor gene, making them more inclined towards monogamy. Similarly, other genes in our brain dictate different behaviors and emotions. So while the environment plays a part, our genes also have a say in shaping who we are. Genes play a significant role in our brain functions, impacting everything from our emotions to our behaviors. There are several other interesting differences between male and female brains. Let's start with the parietal cortex, a region of the brain responsible for spatial and somatosensory perceptions. In men, this area is typically larger. This might explain why men often excel at spatial tasks, such as mentally rotating 3D objects or navigating their surroundings. Next, we have the hypothalamus, a tiny yet powerful part of the brain that manages memory and controls body temperature, hunger and thirst. Intriguingly, it also has a component for sexual drive that is 2.5 times bigger in males. This could potentially shed some light on the differences in sexual behaviors and desires between the sexes. Moving on, we come across the periaqueductal grey, or PAGE for short. This part of the brain suppresses pain and increases pleasure during sex, and is generally more active in the male brain. Could this be a contributing factor to why men and women can have different experiences during sexual activity? The research is still ongoing. Then there's the ventral tegmental area, or VTA. Often referred to as the motivation center of the brain, it's more active in men. This might give us some insight into why men are often driven by challenges and competition. We also have the amygdala, a part of the brain responsible for fear and aggression. Interestingly, this part of the brain is larger in men. This could possibly explain why men are often perceived as more aggressive or confrontational. Lastly, we have the dorsal premammillary nucleus, or DPN. This area of the brain responsible for detecting territorial defense, fear and aggression is also larger in males. This might provide some understanding into the territorial behaviors often associated with males across many species, including humans. As we delve into these intriguing differences, it's important to remember that while these variations exist, they don't determine or limit one's abilities or behaviors. They simply contribute to the unique ways in which male and female brains function. Remember, our brains are incredibly complex and adaptable, capable of learning and evolving throughout our lives. These differences contribute to the unique ways in which male and female brains function. To summarize, there are several key differences between male and female brains. As we've explored, the brain size differs between the sexes, with men's brains being about 9% larger. However, it's important to note that the number of neurons, the essential building blocks of the brain, remains the same for both genders. We've also delved into the grey matter, where we found that men have up to 6.5 times the amount of this substance compared to women. This grey matter plays a pivotal role in information processing, which could potentially explain some of the cognitive differences observed between the sexes. Our discussion led us to the fascinating realm of genes, more specifically the length of the vasopressin receptor gene. This gene seems to have a correlation with monogamy, with longer genes being associated with this trait. This finding provides intriguing insights into the behavioral differences between men and women. We further discussed other significant differences, such as the larger parietal cortex in men, responsible for spatial and somatosensory perceptions. The hypothalamus, which manages memory and controls body temperature, hunger and thirst, has a component for sexual drive that is 2.5 times larger in males. Other areas like the periaqueductal gray, the ventral tegmental area, the amygdala and the dorsal premammillary nucleus also show variations between the sexes. Understanding these differences is crucial as they impact behavior and cognition.